The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the Republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again.
They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of special operations forces.
We will make America proud again.
And watch, please, those mail-in ballots.
We will make America safe again.
And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed.
They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you.
If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. As always, and unfortunately, I am joined by Burning Bright. Burning Bright, how you doing, man?
Better than the Boston sports teams at present.
Yeah, they kind of suck.
Eliminated.
But
yeah.
I can't really say much, man. My Wild, they went into Colorado, by the way, is just so good. It's not even fair. But I legit thought we had a chance, but we're missing our two best defensive players. That doesn't help when you're playing the best team in hockey, and it's just a rough.
Yeah, or when you give up 7 goals in a playoff game.
We give 9 goals. That was crazy. We went down
periods.
We went down 3-0 in the first. We came back. We took the lead 4-3, and then it was tied 4-4. They got on the power play, which we sucked at power plays. We ended up getting the a shorthanded goal, and then they score on that same power play, so it was 5-5, and then it just.
Did you guys have a goalie in net?
We had a body in net. It didn't appear to be a goalie.
Yeah.
But then this is the thing. So we had our Wallstead, right? He was the goalie for rookie goalie. He wasn't the primary goalie during the regular season, but they threw him in there for the game 1 of the Dallas series. Plays out of his mind, and they kept him in the whole series. He won the Dallas series. Comes to Colorado, did not have a good game, but I wouldn't even say that was his fault necessarily because defensively played like shit in front of him. But then they, they pulled him for game 2, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And then Colorado had 2 goals before the goalie even had a save, and the guy hadn't played in 2 weeks. So, yeah.
I mean, I think goalies are fake. Basically, and speaking from the perspective of a team who is paying one $8 million a year, and he's good allegedly, but that didn't help us do anything in a series. I think they should take all goalie money and redistribute it among defensemen, because every single playoffs, by the way, the top 3 Vezina finalists this season, first round exits, which happens.
Vezina? Isn't it Veznia?
I thought it was Vezina.
I don't think that's right.
Vesnia?
Pretty sure it's Veznia.
Vezina is how it's spelled.
Is it?
Yeah.
I always thought it was.
You dyslexic motherfucker. How dare you?
I'm almost positive I've always heard of.
It might be. You've heard Canadians in North Dakota say where they're like, Vesna.
Yeah.
And they clip everything really short. They say about. But the good thing is that the whole hockey world right now is on the same page as me. I've said before, my refrain is that if we're in it, it's a real sport. As soon as we get eliminated, it's fake. And the whole hockey world agrees, because Toronto just got the #1 draft pick that they had a 4% chance of getting the day that their star player, who was himself a #1 draft pick, said he was going to leave the franchise unless they had a new direction. And then 4 hours later, they got the #1 pick for who is supposed to be another big generational talent. So the entire, the rest of the league, the next 31 teams are all currently it's fake.
Well, did you see how they did that, the draft? This year was super lame and super weird. They were just eliminating. It is not this number. It is not this number. It is not this number, but it is this number. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was super gay. But anyway, I'm still holding out hope. We're going back home. I think both of the guys that are injured are going to be back. If we don't win game 3, it's obviously over. There's no way you can He went 4 in a row against that team, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. I'm still cautiously optimistic. So we got a lot of skill on that Minnesota Wild team, but there's plenty of like devolution related topics that we can get into tonight. And I think we're going to do that. We have a new national counterterrorism strategy. So you know how I am with documents. We got a new one that just dropped that we'll go through probably in full because I haven't even read it yet. So I'm curious to see what the full thing says. We got a new Epstein suicide note, which I think is probably super fake, but maybe it's super real. I don't know. We'll let you guys be the judge of that.
Love notes from Trump in crayon in it? Or
no, there are no shapes of voluptuous women in the margins of this suicide note, unfortunately. We have an FBI raid of a Virginia lawmaker for some corruption and marijuana charges or something. And then we have, what else? Potential Iran deal. We have winning endorsements in fake elections and what that means. And we'll see if we can even get through it all, because I feel like the counterterrorism strategy could take some time. But we'll see. See what happens.
Good stuff.
Yeah, what have you been keying in on lately? If you want to.
Well, I keep adding. I usually jump around different writings and researches. I mean, I'm still doing that a bit, but I've now written 8 parts in my Iran war series just because I'm using it as a. Well, I'm just doing an update every week on it. Basically, I'm just writing.
There's nothing to update. That's my question.
Well, that's. I basically see it as a. I'm looking at what the Iran war story is a narrative cover for, and I think it's basically this whole concept of sovereign disentanglement. We've now literally got the New York Times and other places using. You sent me an article today about Ukraine, but it really wasn't about Ukraine. And they're using terms like multipolar world and realignment and all this kind of stuff. I didn't make these terms up. But I did say from the end of last year, well, for a long time, but certainly all of my writing in 2026 has been about how all of these operations from Venezuela to Syria to Iran to Cuba and started with Ukraine is what I'm calling disentanglement operations. And they're being run by the Sovereign Alliance. And it seems like they know, the globalists know what's going on. And that's why, for example, this morning, Trump's daily Truth Social post where he completely inverts whatever the previous day's narrative was kind of one of the funnier ones, because he basically just said, the deal that I already know is going to happen, better happen, or bad stuff will happen, while his official representatives, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, continue to tell the media that literally nothing is happening. It's either he's just lying about everything or something else is going on here. So that series is really not about Iran. It's about what is going on the global battle space. And I think it's a total realignment and a total transition, energy transition, trade transition. And while I always talk about narratives, I think the Iran war is a narrative. I actually think this is an actual realignment. There's actual infrastructure just rapidly changing.
Yeah, totally agree. But again, like literally nothing new from what's been going on for the last month. So
right.
I don't know what the hell you're writing about, but mostly a joke. This True Social post you're talking about, it was one of my favorite ones today. He said, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to. That's how he started it. And I'm like, come on, bro. And then later we get this great video. Storm Has Arrived posted this, and it's talking about how Trump writes his True Social posts and has autocorrect. I thought this was hysterical and awesome.
And, I love the name Melody because for a long time, they have spell correct and word correct and these crazy machines that we use to put out truths, or they used to be called tweets. And every time I wrote Melania, it would correct to Melody. So I'd do things, and I work very fast. Blah, 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 and I talk about it, and I say, and Melania is fantastic and Happy Mother's Day, Melania, our great First Lady Melania, but it would spell correct and word correct too, melody. And sometimes I wouldn't proofread it and I'd say, and I would get just absolute decimated. These people would decimate. They said he didn't know the name of his wife. He keeps calling her. And I said, what the hell is wrong with this machine? I didn't know about that little feature. But I got that corrected eventually. You know who corrected? The military. I said, come here, you got to correct this. You're killing me. I took more abuse. She's been called Melody a lot. Anyway, I had to explain it to you this way. I stood up here to explain it to you. I apologize.
Like the most interesting part of that whole thing, which is it's all hilarious. You know, again, when I picture like Trump and all these true social posts that come out and like some of them are capitalized, some of them aren't. Just rambling rants asides, the weave. I picture him doing it from his toilet. Yeah. Because like it's just the boomer thing to do. And that's when I do my most effective tweeting and truthing. So, but there's this part in here where he says, you know who I got to do it? It was the military.
Feature, but I got that corrected eventually. You know who corrected? The military. I said, come here, you got to correct this.
So when he had a tech problem with his phone, and he was sick of it spelling Melania to Melody, and that's just the story he's telling. I'm sure there's other things besides that. He didn't go to like the Geek Squad. He didn't call the Apple manufacturer, the Trump phone people. He called the military, according to him, to come in and fix his phone up for him. I just thought that was super interesting.
Oh, it's hilarious. And, you know, that aside from the spell check and everything, this whole like performance Trump does when he has these little asides and he's just being funny like this. This is where I have empathy or sympathy for normies who pay attention to politics. Obviously, that's not a ton of them. But what I mean by that is if you believed that everything you're being told in the media is real and serious, then seeing the president act this way every day would be highly disturbing, right? Like whether you're a normie Democrat or a normie Republican, and I mean under the context of what we are told is a hyper serious war that could have these like giant ramifications across a century. And Iran is just the latest. It was every month there's a new giant mega crisis that Trump is supposedly going to pilot us into, right? And I'm sure eventually it'll build up into World War III is imminent. Mm-hmm. But in the midst of that, he's like, yeah, you know, sometimes spell checking my phone. You know, I work in the combat sports industry in my other life. And it's funny when Trump stuff comes across my feed there because today he had the White House, the Oval Office meeting with the UFC fighters who are going to be on that June White House card. And you know, he says like very silly stuff in all of those situations. Like he doesn't really know the guys' names. He just says like odd stuff like he did in that whole thing about the phone. And, you know, all the normie combat sports people who hate Trump are like, this is the guy leading us through these very serious wars. And it's like, well, he's having fun with it, but also maybe those very serious wars are not very serious wars.
Well, it's interesting you say that too, because there's a lot of social media drama going on right now, as always. The info wars are just the info warriors warring with each other. Like this Candace Owens and Laura Loomer thing is its own separate thing, but everybody's going after Tucker, and Nick Fuentes finally came out and admitted what we've been saying the entire time, that he's the enemy. But they're also like, so when you described how Trump is perceived by your normie Twitter, they're leaning into that, and they're also pretending to perceive him that way.
Yes.
Full well knowing, like, these people aren't retarded, even though we call them retarded. That's more of a term of endearment, even though I'm not like big fans of most of those people. But they know this is how he operates, but they choose to use these things as like narrative, you know, weak points almost anyway, which is ridiculous. It goes back to the time when he said the civilization is going to be ending tonight or whatever, and everybody freaked out like, oh my God, he's going to nuke Iran. It's like, you guys really thought he was going to do that? Like, give me a break. Yeah, they're leaning into that. So it's been a great exposure op. That's why I kind of hope the story of the Iran war goes on a little longer, because these people are only making themselves look even more foolish with every day that goes by.
Well, that's why well, it's kind of funny because what you just said is, I think, why I just keep finding new angles and keep staying interested in it. I am starting to lose interest in it. I have said that 2026 is better writing by the ghosts than I thought 2025 was.
You think so?
I do, but it's also stuff that I'm really interested in, right? Like I think the Iran war narrative and the actuals there has so much to do with the Sovereign Alliance idea that I've been writing about forever. I mean, keep in mind, in the last 7 days, we are told that the Iranians met with Vladimir Putin and the Chinese, and the Vladimir Putin meeting with the Iranians, so the axis of evil, was followed immediately that day by a 90-minute great friendly phone call between Putin and Trump in which they celebrated their mutual victory over the Nazis, which occurred the same day that Donald Trump was essentially calling Friedrich Merz of Germany an enemy of the United States and withdrawing our troops, right? Like, that's a lot of the stuff that I like parsing of what are they really... Actually, a point I'll make about the globalists is it mirrors what you just said about the ConInc brigade we've been talking about. And I totally agree with you. The reason we have specific ire toward those people is because they're not normies. Is because they either do know what Trump is actually doing, or they should know what he's actually doing, broadly speaking. And by that, it could just be as simple as they should know that Donald Trump knows what he's doing, even if we're largely guessing at what he's doing. But to your point, they pretend they don't. That is going on the world stage. The reason Trump responded to Friedrich Merz of Germany in the way he did over the last week was because Merz made comments publicly about how Trump doesn't know what he's doing in Iran. And all these globalist leaders are saying that. Meanwhile, in my opinion, similar to your framing of these media figures, I think they know exactly what he's doing. And I think they know that it has to do with the Russians and the Chinese. And I think we talked about this last week. Maybe we didn't bring it up on the show. But the leader who's kind of saying the quiet part out loud is Emmanuel Macron. Because last week he said... The Americans, we have a Russian president, a Chinese president, and a U.S. president who are aligned against, who are, quote, dead set against Europe. So, that it's the same thing going on domestically you're pointing out in the media. And that's why anytime I follow this Iran war stuff, to your point about letting it stretch longer, there is a method to that madness. The actual is all the disentanglement shit and the realignment. But the narrative, I do think, is it's drawing out all these media figures, but it's also drawing out all these world leaders and exposing them, basically.
For sure. And it goes right in line to what Trump said with his national security strategy, where he pinpointed them as basically the enemy. And that's why I'm curious to read through his new counterterrorism strategy. And to me, I'm hopeful, too, because the only strategy left that I can think of out there that is, that we don't have is the national resilience strategy, which is only about a year, overdue. So hopefully that comes here soon too. Real quick, how about this? Let's we have so much to talk about tonight. Let's get a quick word from tonight's sponsor, which is us, Soft Disclosure. Mother's Day is coming up. You guys need to make sure you get your mothers in your life some softer skin. So do it with Soft Disclosure.
Last winter, the world met Madame Margie, the moistureless. But while Badlandia banded together at GART, she evolved. While deep in her layer, she uncovered 4 sacred instruments of hydration. The lip balm, the lotion, the tallow bar, and the new stainless steel gua sha. Together, they wage war. Flaking has fallen, roughness retreats, dryness trembles, and among the rebels, Mother's good boy. But elsewhere in Badlandia, rebellion grows, the beards remain.
Shave them all off.
Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Mama's Boy for 20% off your Mother's Day bundle. Can't choose the right sacred instruments for your mother? Offer them all with an e-gift card. For softness, for victory, for moms.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA.
Get yourself some of that Soft Disclosure, guys. Softdisclosure.com. The beard oil is awesome as well. All the products are awesome. Deodorant. I've used 2 total deodorant sticks since we launched the products. They last so damn long, but they're awesome. So
Mrs.
anyway,
Bright
we'll
is
get
using that strange stone, the Gouache stone.
Oh yeah, I haven't actually used that yet.
I was like, I don't understand this. And she's like,
apparently,
yeah, I'm
like,
using
does
it for my
something.
sinuses. Yeah, and I was like, how does one use a stone? Like, do you pray to it? But she literally scrapes it along her sinuses for like a half an hour before she's going to bed. And I will say,
half an hour?
as somebody, yeah, like it's her whole routine while she's doing work on her computer. She's like scraping her face with a gouache. And as somebody who has suffered through her suffering through seasonal allergies for years, she doesn't really have any this year. And she is claiming that this rock has a lot to do with it.
Interesting.
These statements have not been evaluated by Anthony Fauci or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm just saying.
Are you saying
coincidence?
That the gouache stone and her using it is she not sounding as shrill as before?
She's still womanly. There's womanly complaints, the
doesn't
occasional bout of hysteria, but the nasal passages are more clear than they otherwise would be.
That's good news.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter has one of those gouache stones. So it's my girlfriend, obviously, but she loves doing that thing. I don't think she does it right because she just like rubs, kind of does it everywhere. And I think you're supposed to do it at angles or something.
Yeah, there's like a technique, I think.
Yeah, I don't think she's up to date on the technique, but she still uses it. And her, I guess I can't really say her nasal passages are clean. She's always got some. She's in school. She's always sick. But anyway, whatever, man.
Right.
Let's get rolling right away. Actually, one more thing. Quick shout out to us again because we have GART coming up very soon, or like 8 weeks or something.
Shockingly
June 25th.
Yeah.
June 25th through the 28th. Deadwood, if you haven't been, is by far the best place in the world. And once you go there, you will understand why I say that. It's awesome. This is a great conference. It's going to be a great time, and we have tickets still available. So badlandsmedia.tv/events. The discounted virtual tickets are on sale through May 15th, and then they'll be going up to regular price, although we have lowered the price a little bit. Considering, a lot of people are struggling. We want to make sure that you guys are able to attend virtually if you can't make it in person. So badlandsmedia.tv/events, get your Deadwood tickets.
Yeah, that is the place that basically turns into a Badlands theme park.
Yeah, pretty much does. Kind of take over the town.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great time.
Stuff.
All right, let's start with, I think we should just start with the new counterterrorism document.
Yeah.
And if it's boring, we can stop. But I put this out today, and it's new counterterrorism strategy. We'll just go through. Very similar to how we went through the national security strategy on the show a while back. This is the presidential forward. When I returned to the White House on January 20th of 2025, 4 years of weakness, failure, surrender, and humiliation under the last administration came to an end. Today, our nation is strong, our borders are secure, and the United States is respected all over the world. We are once again putting America first. As part of my commitment to defending America from all enemies, foreign and domestic, we are once again working to crush the threat of terrorism. Within 43 days, we apprehended the terrorist mastermind of the attack on Abbey Gate in Afghanistan that left 13 American service members dead. In just 1 year, we brought back 106 American hostages from captivity abroad without paying a single dollar to their captors. Real quick, before I even go through the rest of this, the Abbey Gate thing, the withdrawal, we were supposed to get that initial report on what went down with the withdrawal back in, I think it was like June or July of last year. And then when the date came and went, Hegseth came out, I was like, yeah, so we are going to need like another 12 to 18 months to finish this report. So we'll talk to you then. And it's been that amount of time. We haven't gotten the report yet, but that should be coming soon. Maybe it's in with the UFO files that we're supposed to be getting soon that are going to, totally shock the Catholic or all the churches of the world or whatever.
Speaking of the disentanglement sort of refrain, I keep saying recently that I think it started with Syria, but really I think the more accurate place it started is Afghanistan.
The Doha Agreement.
Yeah, the Doha Agreement, and we obviously talked about that a lot at the time, but there was just a big gap between that sort of disentanglement and the other ones, and Syria had less to do with the U.S. Venezuela was obviously a bigger one, but yeah, the Kabul withdrawal, according to us and a lot of our audience, definitely looks like it was narrative cover for some actuals that were going on there that were needed. And Joe Biden acted as a great shield for that narrative cover. And I think it's good to keep in mind a lot of the stuff we talked about at that time and that, a lot of you guys were around for in the audience, and kind of apply that as a macro to things like Iran. Doesn't mean it's not a one-for-one sort of thing, but the general idea of a very chaotic seeming story of the U.S. government and military being in disarray, and then what's going on now in Kabul and with the Taliban. Well, it seems like we're on pretty good terms with them, actually. So, fast forward a year from the Strait of Hormuz, and things will probably look a lot more clear in hindsight.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about the Doha Agreement that we always pointed to back then about it being a sort of devolution proof is this was supposedly an enemy, right?
Right.
And Trump came in, they stopped killing our people, and they had this deal in place where they would end up fighting terrorists in the region, allegedly.
ISIS, yeah.
And you would think, not knowing the full details of what that agreement was, that part of that would be us giving them weapons to do so. And then lo and behold, with the Afghanistan withdrawal, we have them getting a whole bunch of weapons. Some have appeared probably on the black market, but some of them are definitely being used to fight terrorists in the region. So it's one of those things where, under the Biden administration, something that Trump likely put in place ahead of time is being carried out while he's not in office, seemingly.
And by the way, that terrorist refrain, that template rather that you're laying out, that is happening in Syria right now with the so-called, we are told that is happening with the so-called Jolani regime. The supposed Al-Qaeda regime that is running Syria, that the Russians withdrew from and the Americans withdrew from. Donald Trump recently said he's got no problem with them. And what are they doing? They're signing cooperation agreements with the American government, with the Trump administration, against ISIS.
Yeah.
Which is the same exact thing.
Yep, 100%. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Bringing back the American hostages. How many of those were brought back by our second favorite gay boy, Richard Grenell? I know we brought up quite a few of them. He was the
is in a distant
guy.
second these days. Sorry, Rich, but you gotta get back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat Besson right now.
Yeah,
Besson's kicking everybody's ass.
Fist fighting in the Oval Office, punching Elon Musk if he needs to.
Can't top it. Anyway, we designated key chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as the terrorist groups they have always been. We mobilized the Department of Homeland Security to remove illegal alien criminals and jihadist sympathizers from the country. We ended the war in Gaza, secured the release of all remaining hostages, and began the process of ensuring Gaza can no longer serve as a haven for terrorism and extremism by bringing security and prosperity to the region through the Board of Peace. Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury have dealt devastating blows to the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, the sinister regime in Iran, to ensure they can never have a nuclear weapon. At the same time, my administration has put an unprecedented focus on dismantling threats to the American homeland in our hemisphere. We are no longer permitting the cartels and gangs who have poisoned millions of Americans to freely operate in our region or smuggle their drugs, guns, or trafficked women and children into our country. Last year, I rightfully designated the deadly cartels as terrorist organizations and began using the strength and power of the U.S. military to stop and destroy their operations. Armed forces also demonstrated their incredible power and skill by capturing the narco-terrorist outlaw Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, bringing him to face American justice. We will not let cartels, jihadists, or the governments who support them, our own government, plot against our citizens with impunity. Terrorists of any kind will not be allowed to find safe harbor here at home or attack us from abroad. Our new U.S. counterterrorism strategy is a return to common sense and peace through strength. As I said after our first successful counterterrorism mission, just days after I was sworn back in office, if you hurt Americans or are planning to hurt Americans, we will find you and we will kill you. Mm-hmm. WWFY, WWKY. That should be on bracelets, rubber band bracelets that everybody wears. All right. Introduction, good versus bad. Love the title.
Just to make it really clear that these are the good guys going against the bad guys.
Man, this is a long document. I don't know if we can read it all. I don't know if I want to read it all. Let me rephrase that. I do want to read it all, and I will. I don't know if I want to read it all while live on a show. We could probably skim it though. Under the Trump administration, protecting the United States and our citizens is once again the goal of our national security and foreign policy. That is what we mean by America first. There's quite the debate going on online about what it means to be America first. And I don't think it's a bad thing, even though a lot of the people that are pushing it are doing it in an attempt to delegitimize Trump.
Right.
I still don't think it's a bad thing to be having those discussions.
Yeah. That's one of those Teflon Don type of things. And our own Chris Paul said a year or two ago, called him divider in chief. I think that's a really great way to look at him. And, the good thing about him operating in first principles, Trump, is that his movement can withstand all of these things.
Sorry, I got distracted and I didn't hear what you said, but
no,
you're
I just
probably
said
right.
He's Teflon Don.
There we go.
Doesn't matter.
America First is a wide variety of components, from securing our borders to bringing jobs back to America, all to the benefit of the American people. Counterterrorism, and keep in mind, guys, one of the reasons I get excited when it comes to the counterterrorism stuff is because of people who previously held the role here. I'm not a fan of Seb Gorka because I'm pretty sure he's like there now, and I don't know, never really followed him. Kind of think he's a douche, but previously Christopher Miller was the head of counterterrorism, and Kash Patel worked in counterterrorism, and Ezra Cohen Watnick worked in counterterrorism, and like all these key Devo names were in counterterrorism. That's where Chris Miller was before he came over to be the acting Secretary of Defense. So interesting role, important role, I think, except maybe now it's, we talk about this a lot, maybe not as much as we should, I guess, but is it possible that the term we're witnessing right now is also still in devolution and we're witnessing like a fake term, just like the Biden term, just with different sets of TV characters? Yes. I don't know, an argument could be made. And people like Seb Gorka in positions like this kind of make me think, yeah, maybe, probably.
Yeah. One of the other interesting things about just the counterterrorism whole theme is that this appeals to one of those, the sort of weapons of the enemy conversation that we have about these various topics, because ironically, my former liberal brain that was super anti the Bush administration and everything, obviously in the wake of 9/11, we had this extreme force multiplier of shielding applied to the U.S. military, specifically Homeland Security, under the designation of counterterrorism, right? It became the war on terror, and I think a lot of the theories from devolution to the plan, the counterinsurgency operation that most of us think is going on, it feels like it's one of those things that they're gladly using all the parameters that the deep state set up at the beginning of this century. And, it's like, they never thought she would lose refrain, but this is why. There's a reason besides the connections you're making. I think there's a reason to the specific figures. There's a reason that I think a lot of the most important aspects of the quote unquote plan would be conducted through the lens of counterterrorism, because the reach of that, the reach of that designation is so broad.
True, but also like its core focus is to protect the homeland, right?
Yeah.
Which is one of the core tenets we think of devolution. Like when it comes to the essential functions, national essential functions, we don't know how they reorganized or reprioritized those, but it kind of makes common sense that if you're going to implement something like devolution, you're going to do the most important ones at the top, and one of those would be protecting the homeland. Right. And it gets into some interesting stuff here at the bottom, so I do want to read through more of this section. Counterterrorism is a core part of the national security mission, and its primary objective is to protect Americans from being harmed by terrorist groups and to deter and undermine the support they receive from enemy actors. Additionally, we recognize that a new type of domestic terrorism has emerged, driven by violent extremists who have adopted ideologies antithetical to freedom and the American way of life. Our counterterrorism operations will be executed apolitically and founded upon reality-based threat assessments. Our counterterrorism, and by the way, this part here, this line, I think is so interesting in light of the Russiagate investigation, because all that was political, and it was on totally fabricated threat assessments. The intelligence community assessments that came out about the election and the Russia stuff, like all that stuff was fabricated and done in a political manner to politically persecute Trump. And so it's interesting that they're spelling this out here, considering we're still hoping and waiting on the rug of the Rico Grande Russiagate investigation. Anyway, continued. Our counterterrorism powers will not be used to target our fellow Americans who simply disagree with us. We will not permit the weaponization of America's unparalleled counterterrorism capabilities for partisan purposes and in contravention of every American's God-given rights. The fact pattern under the Biden administration was clear. Individuals at the highest level of the U.S. government used their significant powers to politically target individuals in the interests of those they favored, wanted to keep in power, or to help win elections. That's a pretty bold and accurate statement, and pretty big to be in the strategy. But that's what they did with the Russiagate hoax. That's what they did with like so many things that they did. The weaponization of government. I think it's huge.
They're basically describing a counterinsurgency right there. And to get your jimmies rustling, it's always signal in these contexts when they bring up elections. Because, but besides the obvious, you got to think too, I don't think that devolution's ever going to be publicly disclosed in the way that maybe we'd like, but
definitely not.
Any retroactive, what's the word I'm looking for? Any retroactive shielding or what'd you say?
Confirmation?
Not confirmation, permission or retroactive justification for anything that was done during what we think was devolution. There's a reason that they would layer in election infrastructure and U.S. elections into all of their strategy updates over the following years, because it's like that's also retroactive. That's a guiding core. That's a governing principle of the administration.
Yeah, I mean, this just gets so interesting here. Millions of Americans have lost confidence in the rectitude of the most powerful elements of our federal government, the national security apparatus of the United States. That confidence can only be won back when counterterrorism is executed uninfected by politics, and if those who use their counterterrorism powers as a weapon against the innocent pay the full judicial cost for their crimes against the civil rights of innocent Americans. That is awesome. Like, again, they're saying this stuff, and it's awesome that they're saying these things. The part that we need is them actually following through on that justice and accountability that they're saying they're going to give us. Because I wouldn't say we've seen it yet, but it's hopefully coming. And
there's a lot of stuff percolating this year that's interesting. But that line specifically makes me think of, you could apply that to many things, but it makes me think immediately of things like J6 and, recently we had, and how all these deployments are converging in interesting ways. Just a couple of weeks ago, we spent a lot of our shows talking about the SPLC and how that related to Charlottesville. And then you've got this coming out, counterterrorism. And speaking of Gorka, Donald Trump boosted him tonight, but it wasn't about Gorka to me. What was notable about it is Trump specifically boosted a Just the News article that was referencing the Antifa designations in here. So like all this stuff is connected, right? You've got the SPLC, you've got Charlottesville, you've got connections to J6 and basically domestic terror organizations masquerading as political groups. And now you've got that seems to be what they're talking about, I would say. I'm sure there's many other ways these things have been weaponized against Americans, but just in the Trump era, we have very publicly seen the weaponization of the Justice Department against MAGA.
Yeah, MAGA, and they had the whole, what was it, the trad wives thing that they were going after. I think there's so much of this. They weaponized
parents
the
at school boards. There was all that.
So many perverse ways.
Yeah.
Also, in light of the FISA situation that just got kind of reapproved, I think this is interesting because that's one of the ways I personally disagree with. I think it's unconstitutional. Trump even said as much. He's like, I'm willing to give up some of my constitutional rights for FISA to go through just for security reasons. And I disagree with that. But anyway, let's keep going. As President Trump stated in his 2025 National Security Strategy, the departments and agencies of the United States government have been granted fearsome powers. Those powers must never be abused, whether under the guise of de-radicalization, protecting our democracy, I hate that one, or any other pretext. When and where those powers are abused, abusers must be held accountable. Totally agree. A radical shift is therefore needed in U.S. counterterrorism, as demonstrated by our successes in the first year of the second Trump administration. And ironically, when it comes to counterterrorism, when it's operating at its best, you should never hear about it. There should never be terrorist threats. There should never be like terrorist incidents. It should just be, we foiled a plot. And as Chris would say, well, how do you know that plot ever existed in the first, but it's working when nothing's happening.
Well, and the weaponization relates to that because as it turns out, and as we all theorized, but is becoming publicly disclosed, is that most of the plots that they do unravel, besides the fact that they don't know if they were going to be consummated, they were the ones who wrote those plots. Right? From Whitmer to Charlottesville to J6. Like, it's not just the fact that they were basically engaging in pre-crime. It was that they were the ones who came up with the plot to begin with.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Whitmer thing was especially funny because there was like 8 total people and 6 of them were feds, and the 2 guys who weren't feds were like, yeah. Under Trump's leadership, the again most powerful nation, the terrorist threat has changed. We face new categories and combinations of violent actors that make the established ways of doing counterterrorism insufficient or obsolete. We face a multiplicity of deadly threats from terror groups and non-state actors, often secretly supported by governments who wish to undermine us. And again, whenever he says stuff like this, I always find it so interesting because he's speaking about and to multiple audiences here, and you could very easily look at the deep state within the American government as one of the people they're talking about here. The people who wish to destabilize our country, a lot of them come from within our own country. It's a lot of the people we look at when we talk about the Russiagate hoax and who perpetuated it and all those other things. The COVID, the stolen election. You can go down the laundry list of things that we think are being investigated for the Rico Grande thing.
Well, in your reference, you're referencing people in our own government, but even that line, like, look at how he is treating our so-called allies. I mean, Donald Trump, by the way, I'm not the one who calls them our so-called allies. Donald Trump calls them our so-called allies. So I think that is, he's got these break glass in case of emergency designations. And I think this is part of how he's even narratively warring with Germany and NATO and the Five Eyes in particular, which goes back to Russia. Because keep in mind, as we've talked about a lot over the years, it wasn't just the American deep state that was involved in that fabrication. That was a full-scale Five Eyes coordinated effort, which, under the context of these kinds of strategies, Trump is basically he could basically say the UK is a state sponsor of terrorism against the United States under this framework.
Oh yeah, 100%. And they are. But I mean, there's so many of these people that are. He does talk about the 3 main types: narco-terrorists and transnational gangs. We've seen a huge effort going against them. Legacy Islamist terrorists. I don't know if we've seen as much on this recently, but I know in the Higgins memo from back in the day, he talked a lot about, Islamist stuff.
Well, I think a lot of that's going on internationally. That's probably less going on domestically.
Yeah. Violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists, Antifa.
Yeah.
Talks about the borderless America created by Biden. And then here, America's new U.S. counterterrorism strategy is driven by the principle that America is our homeland. Americans should be safe to live their lives without fear of terror attacks, the threat of jihadists, the flooding of our communities with deadly drugs at the hands of foreign narco-terrorists or violent left-wing extremists who have adopted radical ideologies antithetical to the principles upon which our republic was founded. And man, that's a lot too, because there's so many. You could, that's a big umbrella you could put in when it comes to.
That's nice though. I like that you said that. I like this is the case where being really broad is good, especially with some of the conversations we have at Badlands. John Drake is in the chat about whether or not the Constitution is the end goal here. So every once in a while, I like seeing them reference their strategies, whether it's national security or this one, counterterrorism. They're not basing everything on the Constitution. They're basing it on the principles on which the Republic was founded. So, that all they need for that is the mandate.
Think of how many people have operated by adopting ideologies antithetical to the principles upon which our republic were founded. Think of the judges out there that have consistently been going against the Trump administration. I mean, they're not technically violent, probably, but there's a lot of people that can fall
aiding
into
and
that.
abetting.
Certainly. Additionally, we will continue to ensure our CT structures are not weaponized against the American people, as prior administrations allowed. When it comes to state actors, our priority is to identify and fully degrade the lines of covert support provided to cartels and Islamists by our adversaries. This includes overt actions such as sanctions, shadow fleet oil tanker interdiction, and covert operations to make funding and state sponsorship very costly to inimical regimes. Did I say that right? Inimical?
I've never seen that word.
I've never seen that word either.
Which is pretty rare for me. I've seen a lot of words. Tending to obstruct or harm.
I learned
it's not very phonetic.
No, that's okay. Anyway, including their provision of dual-use technologies, especially drones, advanced conventional weapons, or the precursor chemicals used to make deadly narcotics. These counterterrorism operations include offensive cyber operations against those planning to kill Americans or who support those plotting to do so. So those are the threats. The people that were, that's the principles. The priorities, hemispheric terror threats by incapacitating cartel operations. And we know that we have ongoing operations down there. Remember that story like 2 weeks ago where there's a couple CIA people that were killed down there?
Yeah.
They're still looking to find and remove cartel gang members who were let into the country under the Obama administration.
By the way, I'm sure that, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but like there are multiple ways of looking at that CIA story as well, right? Like, yeah, I think the assumption from a lot of people is like, oh, Trump administration intelligence operatives are down there and they got rolled up. You know, they are boys in the CIA. But I think a lot of this audience would look at that and go, are the counterterrorism operations down there resulting in some CIA agents not having a good time right now?
Yeah, it's a bicameral way to look at it.
There are multiple ways to look at that.
Yeah, this next paragraph here is pretty interesting. Our nation has not been well served by its intelligence community, which has been mired in old ways of looking at threats or has been actively weaponized by its leadership as a political tool. Whether plotting against conservative Catholics attending traditional mass in Virginia, parents standing up for their children at school board meetings, members of Congress, or President Trump and his associates, this administration will continue to prohibit the IC from being used politically against innocent Americans. As real threats were ignored or underplayed, Americans have witnessed the politically motivated killings of Christians and conservatives committed by violent left-wing extremists, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk by a radical who espoused extreme gender ideologies. Think about this. We are reading the counterterrorism strategy document.
Yep.
And he has now on multiple occasions called out the intelligence community as being one of the problems with terror in this country. And I play this clip almost every show, but it's such a good clip. Yes. I'm going to play it again. Take a listen to this.
Don't forget this persecution is being done by the same weaponized agencies that for 7 years have been running illegal psychological warfare campaigns against the American people, much as if they were trying to destabilize a foreign country. From the Russia hoax to the no collusion Mueller witch hunt to impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, the 51 lying intelligence offers. How about them? They said it's Russia disinformation, and they knew it was.
The intelligence community is a terror threat. That is what I'm getting from this so far.
Yeah, and even his language there, you've played that clip a million times, but all of what he just said there is repeated throughout this document. Can you go back up to that last paragraph of the intelligence community? Because I wanted to see how it said... So I like the terminology has been actively weaponized by its leadership. Now, of course, in this context and in the clip you played, he's talking about psychological operations. We know in this community that InfoWar is real warfare, even if it's not kinetic. It's below the threshold of kinetic warfare. But in my aside about Mexico and the cartels, if you go down any of those rabbit holes into the literal formation of the kinetic cartels, it was literally, not figuratively, our intelligence community that set them up, trained them, and actively aided them. This isn't something, and I think even some people in the truth community get it a little twisted, where they're like, oh, they knew these terror organizations were going on, they didn't do enough to stop them, or hey, maybe we funded an organization that later down the line became a terrorist organization and the intelligence community really lost control there. Trump has been telling you since years before he became the president that the former presidents funded ISIS. And long before that, much closer to home, this document is about hemispheric defense, keep in mind. It is very interesting that in the same document, he's talking about literal cartels in South America that are being taken down. He's also talking about the active weaponization of the CIA. Well, who formed the School of Americas, which was the precursor to the Sinaloa cartel and everything else down there? The CIA. So again, these are like, I hope some of that stuff really gets disclosed very publicly. But as you said earlier, this is another way of looking at the multiple audiences thing, where it's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to read this as political weaponization. They know as well as we know that the intelligence communities were very actively and directly weaponized as well.
Yeah, this is so good. I'm just reading this and thinking of all the bullshit the intelligence community has put us through. And to me, like when you look at the national security strategy, that was Trump putting a target on the globalists and the, our traditional allies who've been fucking us over for years. Yeah, you guys aren't really our friends. We're going to call it like we see it. You guys are our enemies. And we are seeing a multipolar shift like you keep talking about. Well, this national counterterrorism strategy is doing the same thing and calling out another enemy at home that people don't traditionally look at as like, the counterterrorism. They're going to point out the intelligence community as being the enemy here, as being basically state terror actor. Like, this is so cool. And there's a couple other, the more we go through this, I'm getting just more excited. I feel so seen right now. We get some NSPM mentions here.
Can we make a wish that like the most cartoonishly amazing thing in this context to me would be the official designation of the CIA as a domestic terror organization. Like,
I would love
probably not going to happen, but it would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I doubt it, but that would be pretty amazing. They talk about prioritizing, identifying political groups who are anti-American. I'm just going to read it. In addition to cartels and Islamist terror groups, our national counterterrorism activities will also prioritize the rapid identification and neutralization of violent secular political groups whose ideology is anti-American, radically pro-transgender, and anarchist. So the Democrat Party and most of Congress probably. We will use all the tools constitutionally available to us to map them at home, identify their membership, map their ties to international organizations like Antifa, and use law enforcement tools to cripple them operationally before they can maim or kill the innocent. We will do the same with state sponsors of such groups and those governments undertaking lethal plots on U.S. soil or against Americans anywhere. Finally, and in a special strategic category, we will maintain and increase our national assets to combat and render safe the most dangerous terrorist threat to America, non-state acquisition and use of weapons of mass destruction, especially the terrorist use of nuclear or radiological devices. This mission and the attribution of nuclear threats remain presidential priorities as laid out during the first Trump administration in NSPM 35 and NSPM 36. Technological advances since then necessitate a re-examination of the threat and an update to our relevant CT policies. And the reason I get so excited about hearing that is you guys
love NSPMs.
Love me some NSPMs. I check these every day to see if we got any updates. We have, this is so far this year. There's one that we don't know about, classified. We don't know if we've got any more, but he's definitely fallen off his first term pace, I would say. Yeah. We haven't had one since October 15th. And the first term he was averaging about one every 54 days until we get to the last like 10 days of him being in office, when we get this whole flurry. One of those things, like if real journalism existed out there, they'd probably ask him like, hey, Trump, why on the way out of office did you issue 10 of these NSPMs, and why are some of them still classified or whatever? But we've talked about NSPM 35 and 36 before, and how they have to do with nuclear stuff and potentially communication and identifying and all these things. Like, very interesting. And he points them out in this new national counterterrorism strategy. So I'm considering this a Badlands boop.
It's a boop.
There's no other way to see it.
It counts. And
who else talks about NSPMs but me, guys? Nobody.
Right. Trump used to be like an NSPM per game player, and I think we can get back. He can get back to that form.
Well, let's do some math here. Let's love me some math calculator.
Like
how many
core seat rating for NSPMs?
I'm just going to see how many days since Trump was inaugurated. And we got 472 days. 472 divided by 8. No, so he's averaging one every 59 days, the second term. Definitely below his first term pace.
Yeah. That was like, was that rookie season a mirage? We're going to get back. Or, the thing about NSPMs is they're evergreen, right? So does he not need any more NSPMs?
That's true. And some NSPMs replace other NSPMs.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we need a different rating system, I think.
Mission is to identify groups, plot attacks, identify terror actors and plots, cut off their arms. That seems like, how are they gonna? Are we gonna have to supply them with then, like,
bionic
mechanical arms?
Right.
I don't know. This doesn't seem very cost effective.
Right.
And probably could have been.
It's quite a deterrent, though. Like, you want to keep your arms, motherfuckers? You better quit criming around.
It's like the Monty Python scene.
No jail time. No death penalty. The new man, that might be like more of a deterrent to some of these guys. Be like, we're not going to kill you. We're not going to put you in jail. We're just taking your arms.
You can walk the street. You're just going to be completely armless. Good luck doing terrorist shit now, boy.
And nobody can help you. That'll be law. Nobody can help you in any way.
Well, nobody wants to. Who wants to, like, if you have to help somebody with no arms commit terrorism stuff, like, you know how hard that'd be?
The paradigm I'm operating under is that the initial period of increasing armless people, it will take some time before the population immediately goes, that guy's probably a terrorist.
Yeah, but then what happens to people who lost arms in accidents or something? Then people are going to be misidentifying them as terrorists, and that could get.
That's true. We'll have to come up with a symbol we have to brand them with too. So we know which armless people are terrorists.
We could probably design like a patch that has a body with arms, and then put a circle around it and a line through it. So it's like these people got no arms because they're terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, this is, guys, we were part of creating this document. This is just us disclosing that in not so subtle ways.
Yeah. Anyway, destroy stuff. Yeah, we got that. Designation of cartels, transnational groups. I mean, a lot of the stuff Trump has been doing too, which is super interesting. A series of similar high intensity but short campaigns against the 5 jihadist groups deemed by the CIA. Great. This is most dangerous. Diplomatic, financial, cyber, and covert actions to undermine and or deter, there's that word again, inimical state actors from assisting designated FTOs, whether cartels, jihadists, or violent left-wing radicals.
I don't know if you've talked about this yet on your shows, but Ghost and I were talking about it's pretty interesting stuff going on when it comes to the DOJ and Mexico right now. That's definitely in line with a lot of this. So obviously you and I are focusing a lot on the U.S. intelligence community and the U.S. government, the U.S. deep state. But in case anybody missed it, the DOJ is seeking the extradition of the governor of Sinaloa on crimes against humanity, on terrorism charges. So corruption charges, terrorism charges, crimes against humanity, aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. That includes trafficking, torture, ritualistic murder. It's all in there. And Claudia Scheinbaum, the so-called president of Mexico, is refusing to extradite. So, as much as Trump keeps talking about Cuba, Ghost and I have been saying, keep an eye on Mexico. Because if you wanted a story that was more dramatic than Iran, as dramatic as the Iran war narrative has been, it's Iran, right? It's really, to most Americans, even if it's actually happening as we're told, it's kind of abstract. It's not a daily part of our lives besides the energy, second order effects. But if you had kinetic operations, Venezuela style or Iran style, going on in Mexico against the Mexican president because of her sponsorship of terrorism, I didn't look at the DOJ indictment of the Sinaloa governor and say, oh, Scheinbaum's going to ship him up here and that's what they're after. I look at it more as the DOJ and the Trump administration getting Claudia Scheinbaum on the record as aiding and abetting people the U.S. government is publicly designating as terrorists.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think, was it you who said she's like in kind of a pickle because does she continue to side with the cartels and have Trump like have his way with her? Or does she side with Trump and have the cartel like kill her?
And look at what the alt media, who definitely don't watch Badlands shows and steal our talking points 3 weeks later.
Or stalkers.
This was from Tuesday. From Naked Capitalism. Mexico's Claudia Scheinbaum is caught between a rock and a hard place. Now, of course, you could figure this stuff out either way, but it's that is definitely the common refrain about her right now. I mean, she's in a tricky situation. When you read into what they're really going after the Sinaloa governor for, like it's not slap on the wrist type of shit. The US government is directly accusing him of being a leader within the Sinaloa cartel. Like, not just like, oh, you presided over a region and turned a blind eye to terrorism. You facilitated cartel activity. They are saying your governors down, and by the way, they said we have many more to name. They're going to name other governors in Mexico. And I know that's not surprising to anybody in our audience, that Mexican governors are cartel terrorists. But I really think sometimes we're so in our American bubble. Could you imagine American governors being publicly indicted for terrorism?
Well, do you remember when what was his name? Kansas or whatever.
Grassley?
No.
Oh,
old Secretary of State Pompeo. When he went and like to the governor's dinners, like, hey, we know which one of you guys are in bed with China. You better knock that shit off real quick.
So to me, when I see the US DOJ under Trump, obviously, indicting Mexican governors, I know it's just proximity, but it's like they're getting pretty close to the US.
Yeah, okay. I want to keep going through this because we may not get through anything else but this during this. We're almost halfway through, but there's so many interesting things to this. I'm skipping some things, by the way, guys. So I will post this in the chat for anybody who wants to go through it on their own, but I won't post it till later because I don't want you to get ahead of us. Additionally, there is a special category of terror-like actions taken by state actors, including acts of sabotage and the use of proxies, assassinations, and what some of our allies have labeled hybrid attacks. We will continue to work with our CT partners to make it impossible for such state-driven terrorism to occur in the homeland. Now, what this makes me think of is obviously the Charlie Kirk assassination was really the only high-profile assassination that has taken place here in a while. But all the attempts have been against President Trump, and we always come to like this. It's the freaking intelligence community and the people that are trying to like go after him with the Russiagate stuff. Like it's those people. So again, I think this is a subtle way of calling out the the rogue actors within our own government in a sense.
Yeah.
You can talk if you have anything to add to that. You can. Otherwise, I'll keep going through.
I mean, on that note, I'd just say it's laying the groundwork here. There's a lot of groundwork going on here, and I think this groundwork was laid a long time ago. They know exactly. You got to sometimes have fun imagining, as you said, with multiple audiences. You got to have fun imagining those people within the intel community reading stuff like this when it comes across their desks, because it doesn't come across their desks, by the way, through the news media. It comes across their desks as updates to their policies. So it's like an inside the house warning of like, hey, did you or anybody you know do any of this shit, Todd?
You're in trouble.
I don't know why I picked on Todd, but I feel like he's probably the one that did a lot of this stuff.
One of the Badlanders, I went and golfed with him in Minnesota this last summer. North Dakota boy, actually. His name is Todd. So I resent that comment a little bit. Todd's good. There's some other names we could probably come up with.
Right.
People I would like to see without arms,
Yeah, exactly.
The National Security Strategy and National Defense Strategy clearly articulate America's significant means and resources to sustain and defend our people and way of life from our sacred geography, incredible natural and human resources, and unparalleled wealth powered by limitless innovation to a historic work ethic that have made us the greatest power on earth. When it comes to counterterrorism, our resources specifically include intelligence agencies and units who, since 9/11, have become the world's best at finding and fixing high-value targets anywhere in the world. They also include Tier 1 and Tier 2 military units without peer anywhere in the world, able to close with and finish these targets. I do think this is interesting, you know, the 9/11 thing and how they totally just like stripped away many of our constitutional rights. And now he's like basically bragging about it. Like, yeah, ever since 9/11, our intelligence community has been able to spy on literally anybody, anywhere, anytime. And we take those bad boys out.
Well, as I said earlier, weapons of the enemy refrain. We don't have to like it in the long term, but in the short term, think of the intelligence community terrorists reading that paragraph. Because besides it being a threat by the Trump administration, I think it's also a humiliation ritual. We're going to use what you motherfuckers created to hunt you down. Which I
agree. I agree. Real quick, before we go on, we have a couple sponsors we got to get to. I got to get to one of them now, and we'll get to another one later. First, we're going to do Rumble Wallet. Then we have to wait like 20 minutes. Then I think we can do the next one, Rumble Studio. Real Talk Chat. We've been talking about this now for a couple of shows. I think it goes back to Saturday. Rumble has come out with the Rumble Wallet. We've been talking about the Rumble Wallet now for quite a while. And we have agreed that if you choose to send in a donation with Rumble Wallet, we will read that live as we're going through. The rest of the rants we always save for the end of the show. So if you actually want our attention with something timely and like something to interject into the conversation we're having live, the way to do it is with the rants from Rumble Wallet. We will be prioritizing the rants sent through Rumble Wallet. Any hot takes, whatever it is, you can send those in, and it's really easy to use. Download Rumble Wallet right now. You can scan the QR code or hit the link in the description of the video. Setup is super easy. Using MoonPay, you can use your debit card or credit card or your existing bank account and then send your first rant in, and we'll start answering those as they come in live. And also, one of the best things about it is 100% of what you give comes to us, unlike YouTube and Twitch, which take up to 50%, and the Rumble rants, which can take up to 20%. Using Rumble Wallet, we'll get up to 100%. It's basically the VIP lane. Rumble Wallet, wallet.rumble.com, and Rumble Wallet in the App Store. Send those in, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you, Rumble Wallet and Rumble Studio. And we'll do another one a little bit later. Checking the YouTube chat quick to see if there's anything super interesting over there. We got a good crowd over there tonight. Apparently they're talking about painkillers though, so I don't know how much they're paying attention to what we're saying. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. Trump did show a couple pictures of him bombing drug boats, which is always awesome.
Him personally?
Oh, probably. Super real images, I'd wager. Here at home, the Departments of Justice, Homeland Security have returned to the priority function of identifying, investigating, and arresting terrorists and cartel members before they kill or poison Americans. The Department of Treasury's threat finance team, that's some Besson right there, in collaboration with the State Department, is aggressively targeting any entity or individual connected to designated terrorist organizations with sanctions. The above military, law enforcement, and intelligence activities will continue to complement it. It's not that interesting. I want to find interesting stuff. Counterterrorism and presidential diplomacy. This could be interesting. One of our greatest non-kinetic tools is the power of presidential diplomacy. The safe return of all hostages and Americans wrongfully detained by authoritarian regimes is a #1 priority. Oops, I didn't have it on screen. Thank you. For President Trump, as a result, more than 100 Americans have been brought back home in just the first 15 months. We'll never give up on our citizens. Okay, that was it. I guess that wasn't that interesting. Okay, this should be an interesting one. I'm thinking back to Kristi Noem when she was fired from the
promoted to the most ultimate position of all time, John.
The Department of Homeland Security. She was laterally assigned to a different position that was equally, if not more important, with just much less responsibility, much less pay, much less publicity, but definitely
Chief of dog catchers.
Definitely more important. Yeah, everybody's like, she's just going to take over all the stuff from the Western Hemisphere or whatever. Let's see how often her group, or what was the group even called? Does anybody remember?
I don't remember.
Can somebody look that up? Whatever that group was.
Though.
And see if it's mentioned at all in this. Because I was told by a lot of people, and I was making fun of it, all the cheerleaders were telling me that you're wrong. This is super important. You're just butthurt.
The irony is we cheerlead stuff like this, which is when the president puts out national security or counterterrorism strategies, not when Instagram models, as Chris would call her,
Ice Barbie
press conferences.
Somebody tell me what the name of that group was. Shield. Yes. Shield.
Like from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Shield?
I don't know.
Was it called Shield?
No.
I think that's a joke. That must be a joke.
Well, it's the Shield of America.
Oh, the Shield of America. Yeah, you're right. The Shield is the intelligence community in the fictional Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a cinematic universe full of characters who alternate plot lines. So
she was appointed the special envoy for Shield of Americas as a U.S.-led regional security organization focusing on coordinating efforts to combat organized crime, drug trafficking. Nice. Okay. Well, let's see if Shield is mentioned.
Looks like J.D. Vance is taking out all the fraud, single-handedly.
We're told. Our hemisphere, the Trump administration is in large part defined by a return to common sense, which dictates that some things are more important than others, and that when it comes to geography, some regions are more important than others. Love that. Totally agree with that. Understanding the untold carnage wreaked by the cartels against Americans for decades, especially during the borderless Biden years. On his first day back in office, President Trump designated the cartels and gangs, blah, blah, blah. You already know all that. The president has authorized dozens of strikes by the Department of War against cartel drug boats. 90% decrease in maritime drug smuggling. Love it. Integrating counter-cartel and counter-terrorism efforts allow the U.S. to disrupt the shared networks financing the logistical routes used by both designated drug traffickers and Islamist terrorists. With Operation Absolute Resolve, I don't remember which one that is. So many operations.
Absolute
that's one where he hijacked
Venezuela.
Yeah. In a textbook special operations mission, the discombobulator, the first use of that. In support of federal law enforcement, the illegitimate leader of Venezuela, a cartel boss in league with terror sponsor Iran and its terror proxy Hezbollah, was apprehended and brought to the United States to face justice for his crimes against Americans. I can think of another illegitimate leader of a country who was in league with terror sponsor Iran and Hezbollah, namely Barack Obama, who is yet to be apprehended and brought to justice.
Did we talk about how last week the U.S. DOJ gave the Venezuelan government permission to fund the legal defense of Nicolas Maduro?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Who they called their own leader, like who's still their leader.
Both of them call him their leader, by the way. The DOJ referenced him as the sovereign leader of Venezuela and said because he is the sovereign leader of Venezuela, he has a right to defense. But a lot of people are skipping over that first part. The Venezuelan regime that we are told betrayed Nicolas Maduro, in keeping with the Sean Ryan podcast and the very serious Delta Force podcast. That's pretty much what Delta Force is now, is podcasts. The regime that betrayed Maduro was suing the U.S. government for the right to defend him in court.
It's ridiculous.
It's almost like none of that was real. But anyway, it's funny.
The connections between the cartels and jihadi terrorism are rooted in the massive drug revenues that fund terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations and enable their operations against the United States. Operation Absolute Resolve proves that the Trump corollary, the blueprint for a modern Monroe Doctrine, is already the reality in our hemisphere. We will continue our military and law enforcement campaigns against all the cartels and gangs designated as terrorist organizations by the president. At the same time, we will continue to target their finances and precursor supply lines to cripple their means of production and the movement of profits. We will do so in concert with local governments when they are willing and able to work with us. If they cannot or will not, we will still take whatever action is necessary to protect our country, especially if the government in question is complicit with the cartels.
Well, That line right there, that's all the Scheinbaum stuff we were just talking about. Like, look at that. That looks like a shot. That template can be used with multiple people, but holy crap, in the news right now, you've got the DOJ publicly warning Claudia Scheinbaum.
Yeah. Direct shot across the bow. Yep. And
they're saying, like, we're going to go in one way or another.
This is so Trump, because this is how he talks to Congress, too. He's not just talking to, like, terrorist organizations. He talks to Congress like, we're going to have legitimate elections, whether Congress wants it or not.
Right.
Same thing here. Under President Trump, the United States will continue to dismantle the cartel networks and disrupt their recruiting and funding streams until they are neutralized and the regimes who help them are no longer able to do so. Not a single mention of the shields of America in...
That's because they're the ones behind the operation.
I missed that decode somewhere.
Less than 10.
Maybe that's on page 17 of the 16-page document. Maybe that's where it'll...
Yes.
Yeah, here. Middle East, main focus of counterterrorism since the 60s, 9/11. Our growing domestic energy production means the Middle East is no longer central to America's stability, yet threats from the region remain. Our counterterrorism goals continue to be specific and rooted in realistic threat analysis.
I mean, even that's a small line there, the Middle East line, but what's pretty big about that is that it's a complete inversion of the 21st century and a lot of the 20th century of American foreign policy. It's a complete indictment on the idea that an American presence in the Middle East is required, which generations of Americans have been brainwashed into believing.
Yeah.
So it's just like a throwaway line of them saying the Middle East is not a priority for us.
I think this next paragraph is really interesting. First of all, they capitalize on day 8, like each of those words. That's interesting. Of the second Trump administration, President Trump gave the directive to revert the counterterrorism rules of engagement used during his first term regarding strikes against terrorist targets, delegating much of the authority back down to the combatant commanders, essentially devolving authority. This is interesting. Instead of the White House, as it was under the Biden administration, this led to our first successful counterterrorism strike just 3 days later against a senior ISIS leader. This is like this feels very Devo-ish to me. I don't know. Because there wasn't much, if any, terrorism stuff. Well, there still was. I specifically remember when Biden, one of the Devo proofs used to talk about, Biden was supposedly negotiating with Iran about potentially getting back into the Iran nuclear deal or whatever that Trump ended. And while that was happening, our military was bombing Iranian-backed militias like all over the place while he was there negotiating, allegedly. I can't imagine the White House approved those.
It's separate, but we probably won't talk about it tonight. But that little story of the Virginia indictment by the FBI, or the raid by the FBI.
Yeah.
Just little note, speaking of devolution, is that investigation began under the Biden DOJ.
Yep. That's what we're told.
A lot of these, well, yeah, again, as it's just, those are Devo proofs everywhere, right? I think we're going to find that a lot of these U.S. indictments that come down on political figures were, quote unquote, started under Joe Biden, which is quite a handy narrative shield for Trump.
Yeah. I think this next paragraph the second part of it is interesting. Our counterterrorism strategy is predicated on maintaining and increasing that pressure on those groups until they no longer pose a threat to the homeland because they are destroyed, or because we can hand suppression operations over to capable allies or partners. That's some sovereign alliance comms there.
Well, not only that, but to the middle. Well, it is sovereign alliance comms, but
Doha agreement. Like we just talked about.
Doha agreement and Syria right now.
Yep.
Picking up the baton from where we left off.
He talks about Iran being the greatest threat to the United States from the Middle East. Decisive actions to strike on Qasem Soleimani, Operation Midnight Hammer, Operation Epic Fury will continue until the regime in Tehran is no longer a threat to the United States. We continue to focus our kinetic intelligence and cyber ops against Iranian-backed terror proxies who plot against Americans. As part of our counterterrorism strategy, given that freedom of maritime navigation is crucial to the U.S. economy, we will not allow strategic waterways such as the Strait of Hormuz or Red Sea to be held hostage by non-state or state actors in Yemen. We are prepared to take decisive military action again if our ships are endangered by Houthis. These paragraphs are interesting considering the current stage of negotiations that we're told are going on. Because Because this is basically what he's been saying on Truth Social. Like, we're not going to allow you guys to do this to our ships. We'll bomb the shit out of you if we have to.
And this all reminds me, is disentanglement and multipolar theories aside, the realignment stuff of the Chris Paul good twin, evil twin refrain. Because I do think it's interesting that anytime Trump issues one of these public statements about the current state of negotiations, there's essentially one faction in Iran that publicly supports directionally what Trump is saying. A lot of times recently it's been Aragshi. And then you've got the IRGC that says, like, this is retarded and this is bullshit. And what obviously Ghost would spurg out about, and that seems to be happening pretty much weekly, is that when Trump makes one of these deployments, the IRGC supposedly refutes it immediately, but Israel often does as well. And that happened today. So Israel was like, we had no idea about this. And the reporting supposedly out of Israel was that they were startled by Trump's claim of where negotiations were at because they were preparing for new kinetic operations. So who knows what's real and what's not? It's just interesting that there's a factional game going on. You'll see the Iranian government, because remember, the IRGC is not the government, although they maybe control Iran. The Iranian government often supports a lot of Trump's talking points, and the Israelis do not.
Yeah, this next paragraph is interesting. And you and definitely Ghost and others would know more, but it has to do with the Muslim Brotherhood. And if I'm not mistaken, they have direct ties to our CIA and potentially Barack Obama and some of them. Yeah. President Trump knows that all modern jihadi groups, from Al-Qaeda to ISIS to Hamas, can trace their roots back to one organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. The MB is the root of all modern Islamist terrorism predicated on recreating the Muslim caliphate and killing or enslaving non-Muslims. That is why he took the historic step of issuing an executive order that declared the original Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood chapter, along with the Jordanian and Lebanese chapters, as FTOs, soon to be followed by others. Given the Muslim Brotherhood's key role in promoting modern terrorism, we will continue to designate its branches across the Middle East and beyond as FTOs to crush the organization everywhere it operates.
Yeah, and obviously, as you said, with Obama, this community in particular, their ears will perk up. Q followers, there was references in the drops about Obama in the context of the Muslim Brotherhood. And as I said earlier in the show, in a different context, Donald Trump's tweets from 2015, his public statements, tweets going back to 2012, but public statements in 2015 and 16 about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton funding and founding ISIS. This is all offshoots, as it says there, of the Muslim Brotherhood. And there are many who believe that a lot of these people, Huma Abedin, for example, like a lot of these infamous names that are really close to the levers of power over the last few decades, all come out of that organization.
Yeah, this next one's interesting because it's very much just scanning through it. It's very much like the National Security Strategy, where it shits all over Europe. So we're going to read this section in full. The nations of Europe remain our preeminent and long-term counterterrorism partners. The world is safer when Europe is strong, but Europe is greatly threatened and is both a terror target and an incubator of terrorist threats. Terrorists often seek to attack European nations to undermine their democratic institutions and their ties to the United States, yet a conglomerate of nefarious actors, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, cartels, and state actors, have freely exploited Europe's weak borders and diminished counterterrorism resources to turn Europe into a permissive operating environment for plotting against Europeans and Americans. Essentially, he's saying that Europe has become the terrorist power bottom. It is unacceptable that wealthy NATO allies can serve as financial, logistical, and recruitment hubs for terrorists. Europe still has an opportunity to change its individual and collective counterterrorism destiny if it recognizes the actual threat and takes action now. Unfettered mass migration has been the transmission belt for terrorists. Europe can be strong again if it rediscovers traditional principles of freedom of speech, has honest conversations about Islamism, devotes sufficient resources to mitigate terrorism and cartel threats within its nation, and then actively shares its threat intelligence globally and moves counterterrorism burden shifting to take greater responsibility for its own security. This includes counterterrorism operations in Africa. Europe must significantly increase its counterterrorism efforts immediately. It is clear to all that well-organized hostile groups exploit open borders and related globalist ideals. The more these alien cultures grow, UFO talk right there, and the longer current European policies persist, the more terrorism is guaranteed. As the birthplace of Western culture and values, Europe must act now and halt its willful decline. Under President Trump, yeah. Let me just finish this and we can talk.
Yeah.
Under President Trump, America has returned to common sense and reality-based counterterrorism. We are working with allies and partners who share our threat assessments of cartels, jihadists, and violent left-wing extremists. We are coordinating CT operations, sharing actionable intelligence, and providing expertise. We will continue to work with those nations who understand the threat, who take the requisite actions themselves, and who are not undermining the principles that define our shared civilization. We will also work closely with our serious counterterrorism partners in Europe to jointly counter covert state action that looks like terrorism, to include sabotage and assassination plots, and which they have categorized as hybrid threats. So again, he's just shitting all over Europe and being like, we can't work with you guys until you change something. And there's no like writing on the wall that they're going to change anything anytime soon. I love this. A lot of great quotes in here.
Yeah, I love it too. And that you covered one reading of it. The other reading, going back to what I said about the CIA sections in here, the intelligence community sections, is it mentions in every paragraph here state actors as well. They're included. So incubator is quite a term to use.
Yes.
You would use incubator, that's not a passive term. That's an active term, in my opinion. You don't call an incubator for a startup company accidental. It's a very intentional word. And he says then in the second to last graph there, willful decline. Willful. That's direct. That's active.
Yep.
He is saying that the European governments are actively and intentionally incubating terrorist threats against their shared civilization, Western civilization, which is really the major theme of my writing. I talk about the Sovereign Alliance all the time, but the enemy is the globalist Western hegemon, the Western hegemon. And the only two foreign leaders who talk about this openly are Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, although Putin is much more direct about it. So I know that this isn't new to this audience, but you have to understand that what I just said is still considered a radical belief within 99% of MAGA, that NATO and European nations are literally our enemies. Literally our enemies.
Hubs for terrorisms. Like he says it here. It's a matter of time before we leave NATO, man.
Yeah, and willful. And this actually is similar to the Scheinbaum sort of thing, where he kind of gets to play both sides. And he gets to say, listen, I'm telling you enough. I'm telling you, NATO leaders, enough in these deployments that I know exactly what you're doing, and you know exactly what you're doing. So I see this as we can do it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you European leaders do everything the Americans say from now on. You rebuild your militaries. You get involved in what we want you to get involved in. You don't get involved in what we say not to get involved in. And you strengthen your own borders. You kick all these migrants out. If you don't do it that way, if you want to do it the hard way, which I think is what they're choosing, Trump starts pulling U.S. forces out of Europe, and he stops protecting them from the very threats that they have cultivated. And I think all of this is a boiling the frog approach that Trump is taking because the European peoples are definitely waking up to this stuff. I mean, if the internet is to be believed, sentiment over there is catastrophic when it comes to Western identity as a result of the unchecked immigration they have faced and all the crime they're facing. So Trump is saying, like, your own government is doing this to you.
Yeah, that is the conundrum, though, the first part there, if the internet is to be believed, because the internet is also telling us that Trump has, like, no support, and his support is cratering. I don't believe a second of it. Anyway, let's keep going here, because there's just a couple more sections. The Africa one is fairly interesting, especially this first paragraph, because it talks about stuff that we've talked about over the years with the devolution series. Perhaps the greatest counterterrorism victory of the first Trump administration was the destruction of the physical caliphate of ISIS. President Trump unleashed the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen within a matter of weeks. A jihadi insurgency which controlled vast territories across Iraq and Syria was gone. You know who he teamed up with to unleash the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen? That was Russia, when him and Putin worked together against a common enemy in ISIS. Interesting, isn't it?
And what I've said as anecdotes, just because I had a cousin who was involved in some of that stuff, it's very clear that the American soldiers and the Russian soldiers were not really read in on these things. It's not like they were going into joint operations with the Russians thinking that they were joint operations. They were intelligence sharing operations, but basically they stayed out of each other's ways in terms of kinetically. They weren't flying the same missions and everything like that. They were basically saying, you hit this one, we hit that one. But yeah, during that time period in 2018, by the way, was like the major when this pincer went hot between the US and Russia. During that whole time period is when the weaponization of the anti-Russia rhetoric was like at its peak in the US media, where they kept trying to say that the Russians are provoking Trump in Syria and all that. So yeah, I mean, Sovereign Alliance pincer.
Okay, let me keep going here. In Africa, we have two clear goals that depart from the nation building and interventionist policies of the past. Kind of comical because we're kind of being interventionists in Iran right now, but we'll leave that aside. The first is to guarantee that none of the jihadi groups can build a base of operations that allows them to plot and execute attacks against the United States and American interests around the world. The second is to protect Christians who have been slaughtered at the hands of these jihadi groups. And then he gets down here. Secondly, the plight of the most persecuted people on earth has been ignored for too long. And he is not talking about the Jews when he says this, which I think is the most interesting part of it. While America is not a neocolonial power set on shaping African nations in its image, we will not permit terrorist groups operating on the continent to massacre Christians with impunity. With the decisive action President Trump recently took in Nigeria, he made it clear that the slaughter of Christians will not go unchecked. As President Trump said on Christmas Day in 2025, I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay. And tonight there was. In Africa, we will maintain a light military footprint and expect regional and nearby partners to accept a greater portion of the counterterrorism burden, share effective intelligence, and degrade common threats as they arise. African nations have almost limitless potential, but only if their governments exercise sovereign control of their territory and close space to terrorists and violent extremists.
By the way, I think the common allies he's talking about there are Russia and China, and of course I'm biased there. But when it comes to Africa,
maybe Egypt a little bit
from an energy perspective. But so the Russians are the boots on the ground in Africa that have been helping sovereign African governments or militaries really retake their countries from the French mostly. So they've been kicking the French out and stabilizing these nations, creating a land bridge. And Chris and Ghost have talked about this as well. And the second part of what he says there about African potential and everything. So the Russians are helping the Africans kick the French out, and the Chinese are onboarding the African nations onto the Belt and Road Initiative of Xi Jinping that we've been told as Americans is evil and bad, and the NDB, the New Development Bank, which is the BRICS Development Bank.
Yep.
And they're giving them basically no interest loans to kickstart their economies under the BRICS framework. So that paragraph that you just read there lays out what Trump wants to happen in Africa is the ousting of terrorist regimes and the stabilization of African nations. The Russians are doing the former, the Chinese are doing the latter. He's just not saying that out loud.
Well, and it's kind of everywhere. This next part, I think, even hammers your point home even further. As recent attacks and disrupted terror plots inside America make clear, the South and Central Asian diaspora populations here, along with our Arab populations, are being targeted for radicalization by these terror groups. As a result, the United States and regional partners in Asia must jointly develop effective counter-propaganda means to identify and neutralize the media platforms of terrorist groups and identify and locate plotters before they can kill Americans. The United States is open to new partnerships in Asia where shared counterterrorism interests are identified.
Interesting.
In 2025, President Trump rebuilt critical relationships with partners in South and Central Asia because these relationships are crucial to reducing the terrorist threat to the homeland. But our European partners must increase their terrorism operations in Asia. As in Africa and the Middle East, we will work with them, but will not bear the brunt of the burden to protect wealthy nations who should be able to act as mature counterterrorism actors. Al-Qaeda and ISIS still operate across numerous countries in Asia, exploiting ungoverned space to establish safe havens, or in the case of Iran, are being directly sheltered by there's the fucking word again.
Third one.
Inimical regimes outside Asia. It is not cost-effective, wise, or even possible for the United States to continue to conduct counterterrorism activities everywhere, all at once, and in a vacuum. Peace can only be achieved through strength. Therefore, we will further burden share and burden shift counterterrorism efforts to countries in South and Central Asia. And this hammers the point home from the National Security Strategy, where it's the hemispheric regions of responsibility. And who's going to be handling each one? We'll help when we need to, but the burden sharing and burden shifting is the key point here. I think it's spot on to what you were saying.
By the way, in my most recent article, I wrote about the multipolar realignment, and the name of this article is Collapse of the Global Cartel, and I said the following. Transition is occurring everywhere, all at once, from Venezuela
Badlands, boop,
to Eastern Europe to Hungary. So, I don't know. It's boops can be soft, right? Just a tip, just a little boop.
It's the boops.
We'll take it.
Let's keep going here. Yeah, President Trump has ushered in a new dawn of burden shifting. Now is the time to work more aggressively with partners to crush lingering terrorist threats to the United States. Weapons of mass destruction. And whenever I hear or think of Trump talking about the weapons of mass destruction, I think of that 1987 article where he's like, my ultimate plan is to denuclearize the entire world, and we're going to work with Russia to do it. The primary responsibility of the U.S. government's counterterrorism enterprise is to prevent a mass casualty terror attack on American soil. Weapons of mass destruction provide terrorists with the ultimate means to cause such harms. Therefore, preventing terrorists from developing, acquiring, or using chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapons is a no-fail mission of U.S. counterterrorism efforts. I'm not even going to try to say that word. Gas tax, all these things, consistently sought to develop and acquire these WMDs. To ensure any terrorist who credibly pose a threat to Americans never actually gain the capability to conduct a WMD attack, we will continue to work with partners to deny terrorists access to WMD-related technologies and materials and info, hold states that sponsor supply accountable, maintain robust WMD crisis response capability, enhance our capabilities to anticipate and manage the threat. Here, let me read this one. This one's actually interesting. Talks about nuclear power. We will continue to enhance our capabilities to anticipate and manage the impact of emerging and disruptive technologies such as autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, and next-generation nuclear power. It doesn't mention space nukes, though.
Yeah, this is I'm not the only one talking about this. In the tech world, many people are, obviously, but like in the investor world, but not in the truth community. And my whole Timeline War series is about exactly that. Autonomy meets nuclear power as being the transition, and the bridge between those things being that sort of pincer between Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is and the joint working together on denuclearization that you reference with the Russians. To me, that's why I've gone back and forth on it for years, but I'm kind of back on the train of thinking that we are going to get that final stupid escalation narrative with the Russians.
I was told we just had that, though, with the
Russians.
No, we had the scare event of the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah, so look for the umpteenth scare event come. This is why I write shit down, because my article called Scare Event will never be referenced if I'm wrong. But I wrote it in 2022, and I have never changed the premise of that scare event. which was a fake nuclear war or an almost nuclear war between Russia and the United States.
Well, that's what's funny. The people who were like saying they predicted the scare event being the White House Correspondents' Dinner, if you search scare event on their Twitter profiles or telegrams or anything, there's like hundreds of entries of different, examples of things that were predicted scare events. They're just none of them apparently were that scary because none of them were followed by whatever the scare event was supposed to lead to. Anyway, that is
multiple meanings exist, man.
That's true. Let's close this up here. Last page. America First Counterterrorism for the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. By the way, how are you choosing to celebrate the 25th anniversary
of
quarter century? Yeah.
Just stoically stare into the distance.
All right. America has returned to a common sense and reality-based counterterrorism strategy. President Trump has effected a complete revision of how we defeat threats to America predicated on national sovereignty and civilizational confidence and the objective of destroying the groups who would kill Americans or hurt our interests as a free nation. This applies to cartels, jihadists, left-wing violent extremists, state actors and state sponsors, or any future terror threat. Under the leadership of President Trump, our counterterrorism strategy is one of action and strength. Through his counterterrorism strategy, President Trump and his administration will always put America first, defending its people and homeland from terrorists, and always make America more safe and secure. Boom. That was a lot, but that was so good. I'm glad we did that.
That was good. That was way better than I thought it was going to be.
What do you mean?
She said.
Every time I read documents, they're way better.
I just thought it was based on what Gorka was focusing on. I thought it was going to be just gay Antifa stuff. Maybe literally. But instead it was juicy AF.
I mean, I got to imagine Gorka wasn't the one who wrote that. Probably, and I didn't even read what Gorka said. So does it differ
He
pretty
just did an
strongly
interview talking about how this framework was basically all about Antifa, or he was focusing in on Antifa being designated, which we already knew about that. But, Trump boosted that and just, for the domestic political scene and the internet topics, I think that's what's going to be the focus of most of the InfoWar community. We like looking at stuff like the bigger picture, Sovereign Alliance and Devolution and all that kind of stuff. I don't think most are going to pick through it in that way because, again, most even who are Trump supporters and who even ones who believe that Trump is part of some big plan do not understand or believe that there is some multipolar realignment going on. They still think Russia, China bad. You miss a lot if you don't really get the Sovereign Alliance portion here.
Yep. Real quick, we're going to get another sponsor in, and then we have a few more things we can talk about real briefly before we get to the rants. So get your rants in, guys. We're going to get... We haven't heard from 1775 Coffee in a while, so let's say hi to them. If you still haven't tried 1775 Coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit is back with only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Thank you to Rumble and Rumble Studio for the support. Alpha Warrior Show sent in a Rumble Wallet rant saying, go vote, bring a new voter with you. Thank you for the support. $10 in Bitcoin. That's great. Even though I do agree people should go vote if they think voting is the solution. Totally agree with you, man. Okay, let's get to this. We will talk about Trump's endorsements here in a little bit, but we have an Epstein suicide note. This should put all those theories to rest now. Now that this is out, okay? This is what he said. They investigated me for a month, found nothing.
That's
so,
like literally Trump terminology.
Yeah, I wonder if I can get a better... They investigated me for a month, found nothing. It is a treat Is that what it says? What does this say? So 10-year-old charges. What is that word? What does that look like?
10-year-old charges. Stuck?
No. I don't know. But anyway, it is
stuck.
a treat to be able
Sucks.
to choose one's time to say goodbye. Who fucking writes this illegibly?
It's ridiculous. Humiliation ritual.
What you want me to do? Something crying? No fun, not worth it. Time to say goodbye. Oh, it's on there twice. Whoops.
He's being a little dramatic.
I would say so. Yeah. Anyway, so there's the suicide note. Confirmed he committed suicide, everybody. Even though I do actually legit think he did. I just know there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm right now. It's confirmed.
Right. This is what more could you ask for?
John was right about everything.
A crudely, looks like digitally written, handwritten note.
I don't know. It doesn't look digitally
Published
written.
by CNN.
And
By the way, that guy died today, the founder of CNN.
Oh, yeah, what was his name?
Ted Turner.
Ted Turner. As Trump called him one of the greats of all time.
He did.
Yep. I'm trying to see if there's anything else super interesting. I did talk about my show, and we've talked about this with Chris, and I think we've probably talked about it here too. But, you know, Trump yesterday, we had the Indiana and Ohio primary elections, and Trump was like 26 people he endorsed who won. And so, like, hey, what does it mean when, you know, people that Trump endorsed win in elections that he also calls rigged, right? Like, yesterday he was doing nothing but talking about, yesterday and the day before, like post after post, day after day of how the 2020 election was rigged and our elections are rigged. And if we don't fix our elections, then we're not going to have a country anymore. And then he's like, yeah, but look at all these great endorsements I had. They all won. So what does it mean? And I know Chris talks about how if you know the game's rigged and you know how it's going to turn out, you can choose who's going to win. And so you should have a sterling endorsement record. And also, I don't think his endorsements mean really anything when he endorses people like a Lindsey Graham, right? Like, it's so many different ways you can look at it. So
yeah, the narrative, I think, on the macro is that the rumors of MAGA's demise have been greatly exaggerated, and I think that is the narrative Trump is taking with it. That's the track he's taking. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because right now we're definitely getting, as you said early in the show, this go hot phase within the ConInc Doom Brigade that we saw back in 2022 during a midterm election cycle. We have been predicting since early 2025 that we would be seeing this again by these same characters, and we absolutely are. I saw Jordan Sather earlier today kind of stitching together a collage of all the usual suspects from the last 2-3 days, all of them on the biggest podcasts and the biggest X followings, talking about the need for a new party. Mm-hmm. So he was like, oh, the talking points went out, right? Which is so funny because all of these massive accounts made their names by talking about the talking points and coordination of the left. So yeah, you know, we know it's coming. And as Chris talks about often, it's just a matter of watching how Trump kind of navigates this. And right now, he seems to just be taking an approach of, no, MAGA's fine. Whether it is or not, you know, from a national level, who knows? We obviously are firm in our support for Donald Trump. But the narrative, these election narratives help to codify that. And when you are the media apparatus, whether you're ConInc or earnest alternative media or the mainstream media, you can't undermine American faith in elections, right? You can't call these things fake. So to Chris's point, when Trump does get all these endorsement quote unquote wins, the media has to amplify that messaging. They have to amplify his narrative, which undercuts the entire theme that they're trying to stitch together in 2026 about his support base eroding.
Yeah, that's what I think is funny. And that's what I was going to show next is we had like back-to-back headlines, and the last week has had headlines like this, charting how Trump became a historically unpopular president.
Yep.
And then followed up with most Trump-backed challengers beat Indiana incumbents who bucked Trump. So like, which is it, mainstream media?
Exactly.
Which one is it?
Quite the pickle.
Yeah, it is.
It's what we call drafting in the business. What Chris would call drafting.
And propaganda by the media. But again, I'm more so keyed in on when it comes to these narratives is like the bad actors that are on social media, the influencers and whatnot, they are trying to establish the narrative that one, Trump is losing support, and they're coming up with excuses. At one point, I started a list of like, these are all the excuses we've heard so far in 2025 of why we're going to lose the midterms. Like, if Trump doesn't do this thing, we're going to lose the midterms. If Trump doesn't do this, we're going to lose the midterms. We're seeing so much of that, and we've seen so much of it. I should have kept the list going. And maybe I'll go back to it. But
yeah, these are ConInc talking points.
Yeah, they're ConInc talking points. It's all propaganda. It's all served to delegitimize Trump. And that's what this stuff is good for. So every time you have an election, whether they're rigged or whatever you think about elections, whether you should vote or not, to me, it doesn't really matter. It's the narratives coming out of it. It's like with all the psyops we see, the assassination attempt on Trump. I don't know if it's real or fake. Don't care. I want to see how the psyops are played out around it. Same thing with this. When you see people that are lining up with the mainstream media, who Trump has called the fake news media, the enemy of the people, and pushing the same talking points as them, that's when you got to keep your eyes out and be a little more concerned about things. But Trump is using this these endorsement stuff. He's navigating it pretty brilliantly because he can totally undercut all of their attempts to sabotage him by his endorsements all winning.
Yep. And as I said a few weeks ago in a similar topic, I think that Trump navigated the 2022 betrayal cycle brilliantly as well. He did it in a different manner. But the key is, in a war of stories, in a narrative war, if you know the enemy's narrative ahead of time, that presents a great opportunity for somebody like Donald Trump, right? So right now, the narrative, as you're pointing out, seems to be the MAGA messaging, the MAGA unity is, the MAGA message is losing its luster, Trump is unpopular, and even supposed MAGA figures are highlighting that and trumpeting that. In 2022, the theme to undermine Trump was that unity was needed, that Trump's messaging was falling flat, he was unpopular heading into the midterms because he lost the 2020 election. Remember, it was ConInc that tried to codify that loss by saying that we need to pivot in a new direction in 2022 during Biden because Donald Trump couldn't even defeat Joe Biden in an election. That's what happens when you're a retard and you defend elections and election systems. So how did Trump respond to that? He front ran the Ron DeSantis announcement, announced his candidacy because he knew, not about Ron DeSantis, Trump knew that the narrative was unity. The theme was conservative and Republican unity, and that Trump was going to be accused of disrupting unity if he announced his candidacy after Ron DeSantis. So instead, he flipped the tables, and then DeSantis had to be the one who threatened to disrupt unity. So, this year, it looks like, hey, ConInc is going to go all in on primaries and all in on election results heading into the midterms. So Trump is just going to take command of that whole narrative.
Yeah, the unity thing is interesting, too. I saw there was a PSYOP this last week. I don't remember who it was calling for it. I have to go find it. But there's a bunch of people, ConInc people, that were again pushing for unity. It was this weird thing, and like people were like noticing, like, what the fuck is this unity push?
That was the third party thing I was talking about.
Was that it? Okay.
That was basically, they were saying the Ian Carrolls of the world, Candace Owens, Sean Ryan, all the usual suspects were saying. Right. By the way, I think they're all earnest and great people. These are just their political opinions. They were all saying, in order to unify, disaffected Republicans and Democrats need to come together and form a new party that is not a pro-Trump party. So I'm adding that last bit for editorialization, but
how dare you?
Once you see it. So yeah, like you said a few minutes ago, when you find yourself forwarding the same rhetoric as those people, you might be retarded.
You might be retarded. All right, man, let's get to the boosts and the rants and whatnot, and then get out of here. I have the kids this week. Got to get up early.
We got a boost from 1027JS who says, thanks, guys, for $20.
Thank you, my fellow North Dakotan. Oh, by the way, we do have an outro video that's pretty awesome.
It's very strange.
It's very strange. But
disconcerting.
We'll play it.
Yeah.
At the recommendation of a very dear friend. John Drake sent in $5, says, I don't always fight terrorism, but when I do, I make sure my counterterrorism strategy is published for everyone, including the terrorists, to read. Love that comment. By the way, I almost forgot. Guys, do us a favor. I know those of you on Rumble, you love Rumble. I love Rumble too. It's our main platform. Do us a favor and go over to YouTube and hit the thumbs up. And then those of you over on YouTube, you come over to Rumble and hit the thumbs up. You should be doing it on both platforms. It really helps us out a lot. I'm posting the YouTube link in the Rumble chat right now. And I'm going to post the Rumble link in the YouTube chat. And go to both platforms, guys. It's a very easy thing we ask of you. Hit the thumbs up. Robert L. for $20. Amazing to me in this sue happy society that all these companies and people that donated to the SPLC have not sued to get their money back. Coordinated money laundering for the win again. Sure is a sue happy world. Did you see the big thing with Stefan Diggs this week?
I saw a headline that his charges got dismissed, right?
Yeah, this lady made up a bunch of shit against him. It all got debunked and they got thrown out. And everybody's talking about, like, there need to be consequences for people who make shit up. And it results in, like, lawsuits or charges being brought against somebody. And I totally agree, 100%, that it should be a freaking crime to do so.
They're usually Patriots players, too.
Yeah.
This happened to Julian Edelman, by the way, back in the day.
In the truth community, too.
Yeah. It's crazy that that's not just an automatic thing.
Yeah. Peter Friedrich, 7145, left us $10 and a couple thumbs up over on YouTube. Thank you, sir.
Any relation to Friedrich Mertz?
I doubt it.
It's a little sus.
His last name is 7145, and I think Friedrich Mertz is Mertz, so I think they're probably not related. Robert L. again, Trump, I met with senators and asked them, why is it we only take people from shithole countries? People assumed it was the citizens from those countries, but was it the leaders he was referring to? It's a good question. But it is true. We take in a lot of shithole country people.
Yeah.
Keith, I saw a comedian, and it was such a funny bit too, but he's talking about, like, why would we bring in people from countries that we wouldn't even vacation to? Like, you don't look at Somalia and be like, I'm going to go on a vacation to Somalia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to bring in 1 million of those people. Like, no, that's stupid. Like, why would you do that? I think it's a good point.
As an avowed racist, you don't have to convince me of any of these things.
Well, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Keith Higgins, question, is a traitor/terrorist with dual citizenship, 50% domestic, 50% international? FYI, John, Grinnell can't compete with Besson's tallywhacker in a three-legged race to get to Trump's gay approval. Interesting. And then we had
I think he's probably right.
Probably. We had the Alpha Warrior show. Go vote, bring in a new voter with you. Thank you. Oh, and I think we had a couple earlier in the show. I saw a few people earlier. Let me go to the top. Yeah, Beer the Prey, good to see you, man. Dalla Hala for our friends still carrying the torch. Lori Ruggiero, Dalla Hala. And then Beer the Parade again. All aboard the Dalla Hala choo-choo train. Don't get left behind. I do like dollar holler choo-choo trains. Keith O'Higgins. What?
I was checking out the Thoughts, who replace us on Wednesday nights.
How they doing?
They don't match their AI enhanced photos.
They rarely do.
Screen. They have 85 likes with 7,000 live viewers for the last couple hours. So just keep on riding that, Rumble. I'm sure the Fresh and Fit is really going to take off one of these days.
So weird. Keith Higgins, free and cheap energy is key to real African development. You can have all the Chinese Belt and Road infrastructure in place, but it all burns down when the smoke detector batteries don't get changed. Oh, that's so funny. Keith Higgins, the sanctimonious, had to play the heel, the elevated heel, of course.
Yep.
Nailed it. Nevada Runner, 2 thumbs up. Good to see you. Babbage 3 for $1. You got a YouTube super chat. And guys, it's really cool when you donate over on YouTube that Babbage will also donate over on Rumble to tell us that we had donations over on YouTube. So it's like a double
fractional
situation.
reserve ranting. Yeah.
And then the final demand, I think they used one of Matt Gates' top secret hybrids from an alien human rape facility to write Epstein's suicide note. The pastor op suggests aliens are real.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the alien disclosure ends up being because of the pastor shit we're seeing right now.
I just hope they do it on Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg film, because it will be very funny if they're like, yeah, we told you.
I want to see that movie.
We're going to do an alien-themed Disclosure Day.
Yeah.
We are talking about a movie, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I do want to see that movie, though. It does look kind of good. But anyway, I think that's all we got, man. So thank you for everybody who tuned in. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on all the platforms. And we're going to watch a super weird, but this AI video reminds me of the one where they were going through like the Epstein Island and all the different people. And like, it's very much in line with that one. If
Your homework.
You'll understand what I'm saying when you watch it.
I want to remind people, tomorrow night, Badlands Story Hour, new time, Chris and I, 10:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights. We are doing The Matrix Reloaded, 2003. I have not seen this movie since 2003. Did not like it as much as the original Matrix when I first watched it. And man, is it crazy watching through the context of The Awakening. So, highly recommend people do their homework, especially if you did not like the Matrix sequels originally. Should be a fun discussion on what the Matrix is and how gatekeeping works in An Awakening.
Heck yeah. And with that, also, we're going to do a surprise raid at the end of this show. So, stay tuned.
Thoughts?
Good night, everybody. No.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And I say, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter.
Silence with doors open wide, where people have paid to see inside. For entertainment, they watch his body twist. Behind his eyes, he says, I still exist.
Sun, 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 here we go.
This is the way. This is the way. This is the way. Step inside. This is the way. Step inside. This is the